The massive chamber on Nexus Prime had never felt so tense. Ambassador Jin-Ho Kim sat perfectly still in his chair, watching 12 different alien species argue among themselves. Their voices created a strange mix of sounds, some like birds, others like grinding metal, and a few that seemed to come from underwater. Jin-Ho had been Earth's representative to the Galactic Council for 3 years now. He thought he understood how things worked here. The older species made the rules, the younger ones followed them. Everyone stayed in their place. Everyone was happy. Today felt different. Counselor Vexstar stood up from his seat. The large reptilian creature's scales shifted from green to dark red, never a good sign. His voice boomed across the chamber like thunder. The human expansion must stop, Vexstar declared. In 30 years, they have spread to over 200 worlds. They build faster than any species we have ever seen. They take resources without asking permission. They ignore our warnings about dangerous sectors of space. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Jin-Ho noticed that most of the alien representatives were nodding their various heads, tentacles, and other body parts. Elder Morden floated above the center of the chamber. The ancient crystalline being pulsed with soft blue light as it spoke. Its voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. The Council has discussed this matter for many months, Elder Morden said. We have reached a decision. Ambassador Kim, please stand. Jin-Ho rose from his chair. He felt the weight of 12 different species watching him. Some had eyes like his. Others had sensors he could not understand. All of them seemed to be studying him like a bug under a microscope. The Galactic Council offers humanity a place of honor among the civilized species, Elder Morden continued. But this honor comes with responsibilities. You must accept limits. Another alien stood up. This one looked like a giant squid that had learned to walk upright. Its tentacles waved as it spoke in a voice that sounded like bubbling water. We offer you protected status, the squid-like being said. Your current territories will be guaranteed safe forever. No other species will be allowed to attack you or take your worlds. This is generous beyond measure, added a creature that looked like it was made of living metal. Most young species would be grateful for such protection. Vexstar's scales shifted to an even darker red. But you must stop expanding beyond the Orion arm. You must give us your terraforming technology. And your fleet can be no larger than 10% of its current size. The chamber fell silent. Jin-Ho could hear the quiet hum of the station's life support systems. He could feel every alien eye, sensor, and tentacle focused on him. He had expected something like this. Earth's leaders had warned him that the older species were getting nervous about human expansion. Dr. Taemin Lee, his cultural advisor, had briefed him on similar situations in galactic history. 17 other young species had faced similar ultimatums. All 17 had accepted the terms after some negotiation. Jin-Ho cleared his throat. May I ask a question? Elder Morden's blue glow brightened slightly. Of course. When you say, we must stop expanding, do you mean forever? Yes, Vexstar answered immediately. The galaxy has a delicate balance. Unlimited expansion leads to conflict. Conflict leads to war. War leads to extinction, and our terraforming technology would be shared with all Council species, the metal creature explained. This technology is too dangerous for one young species to control alone. I see, Jin-Ho nodded slowly. And our fleet size? More than adequate for defending your current territories, the squid being assured him. You would have no need for a larger military force. Jin-Ho looked around the chamber one more time. He saw expectation in every face and sensor array. These beings had done this before. They knew how it worked. The young species would ask for better terms. There would be negotiations. Compromises would be made. Everyone would sign agreements. The galaxy would remain stable and peaceful. Thank you for your generous offer, Jin-Ho said calmly. The aliens leaned forward slightly. Some seemed surprised by his polite tone. Others appeared relieved that he was being reasonable. The answer is no. The chamber exploded into chaos. Vexstar-S scales flashed between red and black so fast they seemed a strobe. The squid creature's tentacles whipped through the air like angry snakes. The metal being's surface began to spark with electrical discharges. Other aliens jumped to their feet, making sounds Jin-Ho had never heard before. Some sounded angry, others sounded shocked. A few sounded genuinely frightened. Elder Morden's blue glow flickered wildly. Ambassador Kim, perhaps you did not understand the offer. This is not a negotiation, this is the Council's decision. I understood perfectly, Jin-Ho replied, his voice cutting through the noise. You want us to stop growing. You want us to give up our technology. You want us to make our military smaller. The answer is no, but you must negotiate, protested the squid creature. This is how it has always been done. Young species always negotiate. Why? Jin-Ho asked simply. The question seemed to confuse them even more than his refusal. Several aliens looked at each other as if they had never been asked such a thing before. Vexstar slammed his clawed hand on his desk. Because that is how civilized species behave. You cannot simply refuse. We just did, Jin-Ho said. The chaos in the chamber grew louder. Jin-Ho remained standing calmly in the middle of it all, his hands folded behind his back. He looked like a man waiting for a bus, not someone who had just shocked 12 different species into panic. Elder Morden raised itself higher above the chamber. Its blue light flashed brighter and brighter until all the other sounds died away. This session is in recess, the ancient being announced. The council will reconvene in 1 hour. As the aliens filed out of the chamber, many of them kept looking back at Jin-Ho with expressions he could not read. Some seemed confused. Others appeared angry. A few looked almost scared. Jin-Ho activated his communication device and sent a brief message back to Earth. Ultimatum delivered. Terms rejected. They seemed surprised. He sat back down in his chair to wait. Through the chamber's massive windows, he could see the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships were exploring new worlds, building new colonies, and pushing further into the unknown. The council wanted them to stop. They had said no, now they would see what happened next. Director Byung-Soo Choi stared at the holographic display floating above his desk. The Saurian intelligence chief had been studying alien species for over 40 years. He had helped plan successful negotiations with dozens of young races. He had never seen anything like this. Show me the psychological profile again, he ordered his assistant. The hologram shifted to display a complex web of data about human behavior patterns. Charts showed how humans typically responded to pressure, threats, and offers of protection. Every analysis suggested they should have started negotiating immediately after hearing the council's terms. According to our models, his assistant explained, humans should have asked for better territorial limits within 6 minutes. They should have offered partial technology sharing within 12 minutes. Full acceptance of modified terms should have occurred within 2 hours. Troy's scaled fingers drummed against his desk. Instead, complete refusal. No counteroffer. No request for modified terms. Ambassador Kim simply said no and waited. Across the galaxy on Earth, President He Jin-yoon was having her own meeting. She sat in the Oval Office with her top advisors, including Admiral Min-Ho Kong, the Supreme, commander of Earth's defense forces. They actually thought we would just give up? President Yoon asked, reading the report from Ambassador Kim for the 3rd time. It seems that way, Admiral Kong replied. According to our intelligence, they have done this 17 times before. Every single young species eventually accepted limits on their expansion. Why would we do that? The president asked, genuinely puzzled. We came to the stars to grow, to explore, to become more than we were on one small planet. Why would we voluntarily make ourselves smaller? Dr. Tae-min Lee, the xenobiologist who served as cultural advisor, pulled up his own data on his tablet. I have been studying the 17 species that accepted council terms. They all had something in common. They had reached natural limits before joining the galactic community. What kind of limits? The president asked. Resource shortages, overpopulation, technological barriers they could not overcome alone. When the Council offered them stability and protection, it solved problems they already had. Admiral Kung nodded slowly. We do not have those problems. Exactly, Dr. Lee said. Our population is growing but manageable. Our technology continues to advance. We have identified thousands of worlds suitable for colonization. The Council is asking us to stop doing something that is working perfectly well. Back on Nexus Prime, analyst Kenji Watanabe was presenting his findings to a closed session of Council intelligence directors. The Saurian xenopsychologist had been studying human behavior patterns for months. The humans do not think like other species, Watanabe explained to the gathered intelligence chiefs. Most young races see expansion as a luxury, something nice to have if you can afford it. Humans see expansion as a necessity, Director Choi leaned forward. Explain. Look at their history. They spread across their entire planet despite enormous obstacles. Deserts, frozen wastelands, dangerous oceans, nothing stopped them. When they reached the limits of their world, they immediately began reaching for the stars. All species eventually expand beyond their homeworlds, protested the intelligence chief from the Cetacean Collective. Not like this, Watanabe insisted. Other species expand when they need to, when population pressure forces them outward, or when they discover new resources they require. Humans expand because expansion is what they do. It is not driven by necessity, it is driven by nature. The intelligence directors exchanged worried glances. This was not what they wanted to hear. Meanwhile, Admiral Kong was quietly implementing new fleet movements. He called them routine training exercises. Ships that had been patrolling the inner human system suddenly needed to practice long-range navigation near the borders of Council space. Fleets that had been conducting standard maneuvers found themselves positioned at key strategic points throughout human territory. The Admiral was not preparing for war. He was preparing for the possibility that someone else might be the Council's. First response was predictable. Trade sanctions began appearing on human goods. Shipping routes that had carried supplies to human colonies were suddenly declared unsafe by Council authorities. Permits for human vessels to dock at alien stations were delayed or denied. The results were not what the Council expected. Instead of shortages and economic pressure forcing humanity to reconsider, the human colonies simply became more self-sufficient. Mining operations expanded. Manufacturing facilities worked overtime. Trade routes that had connected human and alien space were replaced by routes connecting human colonies to each other. Dr. Lee studied the economic data with growing amazement. They isolated us, but we are not actually isolated, he told President Yoon during their daily briefing. We have been building connections between our own worlds faster than they can cut connections to theirs. How is that possible? The president asked. We never depended on them as much as they thought we did, Admiral Kong replied. Our expansion was not driven by need for alien resources or technology. It was driven by our own capabilities and desires. The most disturbing intelligence came from intercepted human communications. Council listening posts had been monitoring human government channels, expecting to hear panic, emergency meetings, and desperate discussions about how to respond to alien pressure. Instead, they heard something much more frightening. The alien offer is still making headlines, President Yoon said during a recorded cabinet meeting that was intercepted by Council intelligence. The public reaction has been interesting. How so? Asked her Secretary of State. Most people seem genuinely confused about why the aliens think we would accept limits on our expansion. The most common response in the polls is not anger or fear. It is bewilderment. They do not understand why anyone would voluntarily stop growing, Admiral Kong added. Several governors have asked me if this is some kind of alien joke they do. Not understand. Dr. Lee had prepared a public statement that was broadcast throughout human space and inevitably picked up by alien intelligence networks. The message was simple, direct, and absolutely terrifying to the Council members who heard it. We appreciate the Council's concern about galactic stability, Dr. Lee said, speaking directly into the camera. But we think there has been a misunderstanding about why humanity came to the stars. We did not come here to find a safe place to stop growing. We came here to grow beyond anything we could imagine on Earth. That is not negotiable because that is not a policy position. It is simply what we are. The recording spread through alien communication networks within hours. Intelligence analysts studied every word, every gesture, every inflection in Dr. Lee's voice. They were looking for hidden meanings, subtle threats, or signs that this was a negotiating position. They found none of those things. Instead, they found something that chilled them to their alien cores. Dr. Lee was not making threats. He was not posturing for political advantage. He was simply explaining, with the patience of a teacher talking to confused students, why humanity would never voluntarily accept limits on their expansion. The humans were not negotiating because they saw nothing to negotiate about. Director Choi called an emergency meeting of all Council intelligence chiefs. When they gathered in the secure chamber deep within Nexus Prime, his first words sent shockwaves through the group. "We have made a fundamental error," he announced. "We have been treating this as a diplomatic problem. It is not." "What do you mean?" asked the Crystalline Intelligence Director. "Diplomatic problems involve species with different interests negotiating to find common ground. This is not about interests. This is about incompatible natures." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "Are you saying negotiation is impossible?" asked the cetacean representative. Director Choi's scales had turned a pale, sickly color. "I'm saying that asking humans to accept limits on their expansion is like asking water to stop being wet. It is not a request they can fulfill while remaining what they are." Outside the chamber, the great stations of the Galactic Council continued their ancient work of maintaining peace and stability among the stars. But deep in the intelligence centers, a new and terrible understanding was beginning to emerge. They were not dealing with just another young species that needed to be managed. They were dealing with something that had never existed in the galaxy before, a species that saw unlimited growth not as a luxury to be bargained away, but as a fundamental right that could never be surrendered. Counselor Thexara floated in her specialized water tank, studying the strategic display with growing concern. The cetacean strategist had planned successful interventions against dozens of troublesome species over the centuries. None of those experiences had prepared her for humanity. "Economic pressure has failed," she reported to the emergency council session. "Trade sanctions have made human colonies more independent, not more compliant. Military positioning has triggered corresponding human movements that actually strengthen their defensive posture." Elder Morton S. crystalline form pulsed with frustrated energy. "How is this possible? Economic isolation has worked against every previous species. Because other species expanded to acquire resources they needed," economist Veltar explained, his insectoid voice clicking with agitation. "Humans expand because expansion is their natural behavior. They build what they need as they go." The observation deck of the human exploration vessel New Horizon offered Captain Yunmi SCO a spectacular view of the Kepler 442 system. Her ship was the first to reach this distant corner of the galaxy, over 3,000 light-years from Earth. It was also much farther than the Council wanted any human vessel to go. "Survey complete, Captain," reported her science officer. 3 planets suitable for immediate colonization. 2 more could be terraformed within 50 years. Captain SCO nodded, making notes on her tablet. "Send the data back to Colonial Command. Mark this system as claimed under human expansion protocols." "Should we establish a monitoring station?" her first officer asked. "Not yet. We have 7 more systems to survey before returning home." Captain SCO looked out at the alien stars. "The Council wants us to stop expanding. Let us show them what human expansion actually looks like." 3 weeks later, similar scenes were playing out across dozens of frontier systems. Human exploration fleets were pushing deeper into unexplored space than ever before. Instead of slowing down in response to Council pressure, they had accelerated. General Yiseok Nam stood on the observation platform of Firebase Delta, watching construction crews work around the clock to fortify the human colony on Kepler 186f. The border world had been a peaceful farming settlement just months ago. Now it looked like a military stronghold. "How long until the defensive grid is online?" he asked his engineering commander. 72 hours, General." The automated missile. "Platforms will be operational first, followed by the shield generators." General Nam nodded approvingly. The Council had been conducting what they called routine patrols near human border worlds for weeks now. Alien warships would appear at the edge of human systems, conduct extensive scans, and then withdraw. It was clearly meant as intimidation. The humans had responded by turning their border colonies into fortresses. "Any word from Fleet Command about the alien movements?" General Nam asked. "Admiral Kong reports that our deep space monitoring stations are tracking over 200 alien vessels conducting these patrols. They seem to be testing our reaction times and defensive capabilities." "What does intelligence think they are? Planning? A show of force operation, most likely. Something designed to demonstrate Council power without actually starting a war." General Nam studied the tactical display showing alien ship positions throughout the sector. "They may be in for a surprise." In the depths of the Nexus Prime Intelligence Complex, economist Veltar was presenting the most alarming projections the Council had ever seen. "If human expansion continues at current rates," he announced to the gathered Council members, "they will control more habitable worlds than any other species within 200 years. The chamber erupted in shocked chittering, growling, and other expressions of alien distress. "That is impossible," Vextar protested, his scales flashing angry red. "No single species has ever controlled more than a few hundred systems. Humans currently control over 400 systems and are adding new ones at a rate of 3 per week," Veltar replied. "Their expansion is not linear, it is exponential." Councillor Vexara's water tank bubbled with agitation. "Their population cannot possibly support that many colonies." "Human colonies do not require large populations to be successful," Veltar explained. "They use automated systems and advanced terraforming to establish self-sufficient settlements with minimal human presence. A single human family can establish a colony that will support thousands within a generation." Elder Morden's glow dimmed to a worried amber. "What are you suggesting?" "I am suggesting that we are watching the emergence of the first truly galactic species," Veltar said quietly. "If we do not act soon, humanity will become too large and too powerful to control." The recommendation that emerged from the economic analysis was stark: military action had to be taken before human expansion made such action impossible. But when the Council requested detailed intelligence on human military capabilities, they received another shock. "Human military doctrine is unlike anything we have encountered," reported Intelligence Director Choi during a classified briefing. "Most species develop military strategies based on territorial defense, resource protection, or conquest objectives. Human military planning assumes total war." "Explain," demanded Vextar. "Their contingency plans do not include scenarios for limited conflict, negotiated surrender, or territorial concessions. Every human military exercise we have monitored assumes that any attack on human territory is an attempt at species genocide." The Council members exchanged worried glances. "Surely that is just planning for worst-case scenarios," Councillor Vexara suggested hopefully. Director Choi's scales had turned a sickly gray color. "We intercepted communications from their military high command. General Nam's forces are implementing something called Total Response Protocols. Admiral Kong's fleets are being positioned not for territorial defense, but for what they term maximum retaliation deployment." "What does that mean?" Elder Morden asked, though the tone of the question suggested it already knew. It did not want to hear the answer. "It means that if we attack one human world, they will attack every Council homeworld simultaneously." The chamber fell silent. The implications were staggering. "That is madness," Vextar whispered. "Such an action would guarantee their own destruction, would it?" Director Choi asked. Our analysis suggests that human military technology is advancing faster than our intelligence can track it. Their ship designs incorporate innovations we do not understand. Their weapon systems use principles our scientists have not yet discovered. He activated a holographic display showing recent images of human military vessels. These ships were photographed by our surveillance drones near the human border. Notice the configuration of the weapons arrays. Notice the power signatures. Notice the propulsion systems. The Alien Council members studied the images with growing alarm. "We have never seen anything like these designs," admitted the crystalline military advisor. "Because they are new," Director Troy explained. "Human military technology is not based on proven, stable designs that have been tested over centuries. They continuously innovate, experiment, and improve. Their newest ships are more powerful than their previous models, not by small margins, but by factors of 2 or 3. "How is such rapid advancement possible?" asked economist Veltar. "Because they are not trying to maintain stability," Director Choi replied. "They are trying to grow stronger, faster, and more capable as quickly as possible. Military advancement is part of their expansion philosophy." The final piece of intelligence was the most disturbing of all. "We have identified the source of human expansion," Director Choi announced. "It is not centrally planned or government-directed. Then who is controlling it?" demanded Vexstar. "No one." Director Choi's scales had now turned completely white with stress. "Human expansion is driven by millions of individual decisions made by families, companies, and small groups. There is no central authority making expansion decisions that we could pressure or negotiate with." The council chamber fell into stunned silence. "Every successful intervention in our history has depended on identifying the decision-makers of a species and influencing them," Councillor Vexara said slowly. "If there are no central decision-makers, then there is no one to negotiate with," Elder Morden finished. "And no way to stop the expansion through diplomatic or economic pressure." Outside the council chamber, the great stations of galactic civilization continued their work. Trade flowed along ancient routes. Ships traveled between worlds that had been connected for thousands of years. The old order maintained itself through customs and agreements that had been refined over millennia. But somewhere beyond the edge of that order, human ships were discovering new worlds at an unprecedented rate. Human colonies were taking root in systems that had never known intelligent life. Human families were making decisions that would reshape the galaxy. One choice at a time, the Council had been trying to manage a young species that needed guidance and control. Instead, they had discovered something that had never existed in galactic history. A species whose expansion could not be stopped because it was not controlled by anyone or anything except the nature of humanity itself. The pressure campaign had failed. Not because it was too weak, but because there was nothing to pressure. The humans were not expanding because their government told them to expand. The vote was closer than anyone had expected, but the result was clear. The Galactic Council had authorized limited military action against humanity. 3 council fleets would converge on the human border world of New Sol to establish a blockade. No shots would be fired unless humans fired first. It would be a demonstration of power. Nothing more. Supreme Admiral Wu Jin Beek received the intelligence report in his command center aboard the flagship Incheon. He read it twice, set it down, and looked at the tactical display showing the positions of every human fleet in the galaxy. "They are going to blockade New Sol," he announced to his senior staff. "How many ships?" asked his tactical officer. 3 full fleets. Approximately 240 vessels total. The staff officers exchanged glances. It was a massive show of force, large enough to overwhelm any conventional defense. "Orders, Admiral?" asked his communications officer. Admiral Beek studied the tactical display for a long moment. Then he began issuing instructions that would change galactic history. "Send immediate deployment orders to Battle Groups 7, 12, and 15. They are to proceed to Council homeworld systems and establish orbital positions." "Sir?" The tactical officer sounded confused. Which Council homeworld systems? All of them. The command center fell silent. Admiral, his chief of staff said carefully, that will require every available fleet unit. Yes, it will. Sir, that will leave our own territories completely undefended. Admiral Beak turned to look at his staff with an expression that none of them had ever seen before. It was not anger, it was not fear. It was something much more. Dangerous absolute certainty. If they blockade one of our worlds, he said quietly, there will be no territories left to defend. 12 hours later, the Council received reports that shattered their understanding of human military capabilities. Human fleets had appeared simultaneously in orbit around every Council homeworld. Not just the major systems, every single planet that housed a Council member species government, military command, or significant population center, the humans had not simply deployed their known fleets. They had revealed the existence of military forces that Council intelligence had never detected. Philosopher King Zender was the first Council leader to grasp the full implications. The ancient ethereal ruler had survived 17 galactic cycles by understanding the true nature of power. From his crystalline palace on the ethereal homeworld, he watched human warships maintain perfect orbital positions above his capital city. How many ships? He asked his military advisor. 47 vessels in this system alone, your wisdom. Each one larger and more heavily armed than our most advanced battleships. Where did they come from? Unknown, your wisdom. They appeared on our sensors as if materializing from empty space. Our detection systems registered no approach vectors, no energy signatures, nothing to indicate their presence until they were already in position. Zender's ancient consciousness contemplated this information. In his long existence, he had seen species rise and fall. He had watched empires span galaxies and crumble to dust. He had never seen anything like this. Send a message to the Council, he instructed. Tell them that the humans have been building fleets we never knew existed. Similar scenes were playing out across 12 different star systems. On the Saurian homeworld, Vexstar stared up at the human ships through his palace windows while his military advisors reported impossible statistics. Their smallest vessels are more powerful than our dreadnoughts, the Saurian fleet admiral reported. Their largest ships? We have nothing in our databases to compare them to. How many humans would it take to crew such a fleet? Vexstar asked, based on our estimates of human ship design. Maybe 50,000? Vexstar's scale shifted to colors that had no names. 50,000 humans are holding 12 homeworlds. Hostage? It appears so, Prime Minister. On Nexus Prime, Elder Morden was receiving the most disturbing report of all. The humans had not just positioned fleets at Council homeworlds. They had demonstrated capabilities that violated every assumption about galactic warfare. Stealth technology beyond our current understanding. Intelligence Director Choi reported, his scales now permanently gray with stress. Faster-than-light communication that bypasses our monitoring networks. Ships that can apparently travel between star systems without using conventional hyperspace routes. How is that possible? Elder Morden asked. We do not know. Our scientists are analyzing the sensor data, but human technology appears to be advancing along paths we never considered. Meanwhile, Colonel Sun Wuhan was leading a very different kind of demonstration. His special forces teams had infiltrated 17 major Council installations, not to attack them, but to prove they could. The evidence of human infiltration was subtle but unmistakable. Security cameras showed brief glimpses of human figures in areas that should have been impossible to reach. Computer systems displayed messages that could only have been placed by someone with physical access to secure terminals. Most unsettling of all, gifts had been left for key Council personnel, items from their homeworlds that could only have been obtained by someone who had been there recently. Counselor Prime Kecksmith found the gift on his private desk in his locked, secured office. It was a shell from the beaches of his spawning grounds, a place no alien had ever visited. The shell had been carved with a simple message in perfect cephalopod script. We can reach anywhere we choose to reach. The psychological impact was devastating. They walked through our most secure facilities like tourists, the cephalopod security chief reported to his superior. Our detection systems, our armed guards, our sealed blast doors, none of it mattered. How many infiltration teams do they have? Keksmuth asked. Unknown, Prime. The evidence suggests they can insert small teams anywhere in council space without detection. There may be human agents in every major facility. The message was becoming clear to every council member. The humans were not just refusing to negotiate, they were demonstrating that the very concept of controlling them was an illusion. But the most shocking revelation came when Council intelligence finally decoded the deployment orders Admiral Beak had sent to his fleets. The humans had not positioned their ships to attack Council homeworlds. They had positioned them to defend those worlds from other Council species. The human fleet protecting our homeworld is maintaining defensive positions, reported the Saurian Fleet Admiral to Vexstar. If anyone attacks this system, the human ships are positioned to intercept and destroy the attackers. Are you saying they are protecting us? Vexstar asked incredulously. It appears so, Prime Minister. Similar reports were coming in from every Council homeworld. The humans had not taken any aggressive actions. Instead, they had effectively become the guardians of Council space, protecting each species from potential attack by other Council members. The implications were staggering. They have made military action impossible, Councilor Vexstar reported to the emergency council session. No Council species can attack human territory without first fighting through human fleets defending other Council worlds. But why would they protect us? Asked Elder Morden. Intelligence Director Choi provided the answer that changed everything. Because they are not trying to conquer us, he explained. According to intercepted human communications, they view this as a demonstration of what galactic civilization could become with proper protection. What do you mean? Vexstar demanded. They are showing us that they have the power to protect every species in the galaxy from every other species. They are demonstrating that conflicts between Council members are only possible because we choose to allow them. The final piece of intelligence came from analyst Kenji Watanabe, who had been studying human cultural broadcasts during the crisis. The human population is not celebrating a military victory, he reported. They are celebrating the successful protection of galactic civilization from what they call unnecessary conflict. They do not see this as an act of war? Asked Elder Morden. They see it as an act of galactic citizenship, Watanabe replied. Human news broadcasts are describing their fleets as peacekeeping forces, maintaining stability while the Council learns to work together constructively. The room fell silent as the full scope of human thinking became clear. They do not want to conquer us, Councilor Vexstar said slowly. They want to fix us. Fix us? Vexstar's scales flashed confused colors. They believe galactic civilization is broken because species fight over limited resources and territory instead of working together to find unlimited resources and territory. Director Choi explained. They are not trying to defeat the Council. They are trying to demonstrate a better way for the Council to exist. Philosopher King Zender's message to the emergency council session was brief but profound. We attempted to force them into our existing order. Instead, they have created a new order and invited us to join it. Outside the council chamber, human fleets maintained their protective positions around 12 different worlds. Human special forces teams provided invisible security for installations across council space. Human exploration vessels continued to discover new worlds at an unprecedented rate. The Council had tried to force humanity to accept limits. Instead, humanity had demonstrated that the limits were voluntary. 6 months had passed since the crisis began, and the Galactic Council chamber had never been quieter. The usual sounds of debate, argument, and political maneuvering were absent. Instead, 12 species sat in contemplative silence as they faced the most important decision in galactic history. Ambassador Subin Park stood where her predecessor Jin-Ho Kim had delivered humanity's simple refusal. But today felt different. The tension was gone, replaced by something much more complex, the weight of possibility. Elder Morden floated at the center of the chamber, its crystalline form pulsing with soft, thoughtful light. The ancient being had called this session, not to deliver ultimatums or negotiate terms, but to announce a fundamental change in how galactic civilization understood itself. Historical analyst Thexiven will present the findings. Elder Morden announced, the collective consciousness entity materialized as a shifting cloud of light and energy. When it spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. We have analyzed 17,000 years of galactic history, Thexiven announced. We have studied every species integration, every territorial negotiation, every expansion agreement in our records. We have discovered a pattern that explains everything. The cloud of light shifted, displaying holographic images of various species throughout galactic history. Every species that joined the galactic community had reached what we call natural limitation points, resource exhaustion, population pressure, technological barriers they could not overcome alone, energy limitations, environmental collapse, disease, war. The images showed worlds stripped of resources, overcrowded cities, species struggling with problems that threatened their survival. When we offered these species controlled expansion, protected territories, and shared resources, we were solving problems they already had. Accepting our terms made them stronger, safer, and more prosperous than they could be alone. The images shifted to show the same species after joining the Council, peaceful, stable, content within their designated territories. We assumed this pattern was universal. We believed all intelligent species would eventually face limitations that made Council membership attractive. The images changed again, showing human colonies spreading across dozens of star systems. Humanity has not reached natural limitation points. They have no resource shortages. Their population is growing but manageable. Their technology continues to advance. Their expansion creates new opportunities rather than consuming existing ones. Ambassador Park listened with interest but no surprise. Dr. Tamin Lee had reached similar conclusions months earlier. We offered to solve problems they do not have, Thexiven continued. We offered to prevent catastrophes they are not facing. We asked them to accept protection from dangers that do not threaten them. Vexstar-S scales had returned to their normal green color for the first time in months. So our entire approach was based on incorrect assumptions? Not incorrect, Thexiven corrected, simply incomplete. Our model worked perfectly for 17 species because those species needed what we offered. Humanity does not need what we traditionally offer. Then, what do they need? Asked Counselor Thexara. Space to grow. The simplicity of the answer was startling. Elder Morden's light brightened, which brings us to today's proposal. Ambassador Park stepped forward, holding a datapad that contained the most radical diplomatic proposal in galactic history. President. Dalsu Kim sends greetings to the Galactic Council, she began. He has asked me to present an alternative to the traditional model of species integration. She activated a holographic display showing detailed star charts of unexplored galactic regions. Rather than humanity accepting limits on our expansion, we propose expansion of the galactic community itself. The chamber stirred with interest. Explain, requested Elder Morden. The galaxy contains over 400 billion star systems. Current Council territory encompasses less than 1% of available space. Humanity's expansion, even at our current accelerated rate, affects less than 0.1% of galactic resources. The numbers were staggering. Most Council members had never considered the sheer scale of what remained unexplored. We are arguing over territory in a galaxy that is essentially empty, Ambassador Park continued. Why enforce artificial scarcity when natural abundance is available? She touched her datapad and the holographic display expanded to show detailed proposals. Joint exploration fleets combining human expansion capabilities with alien expertise. Shared terraforming technology that allows every species to establish new colonies beyond their current territories. Cooperative expansion into galactic regions that no single species could explore alone. Economist Veltar S. Mandibles clicked with excitement as he studied the economic projections. The resource potential is ... limited. Exactly, Ambassador Park agreed. Instead of managing scarcity, we could be creating abundance. The proposal was unprecedented in its scope. Humanity was not asking the Council to change their rules. They were asking the Council to expand their vision to match humanity's natural behavior. Philosopher King Zender was the first to grasp the full implications. His ancient wisdom recognized the moment when an old age ended and a new one began. You are proposing to transform galactic civilization from a system that manages existing resources to a system that discovers new ones, he observed. That is exactly what we are proposing, Ambassador Park confirmed. And if we refuse? Ambassador Park's expression remained perfectly calm. Then you continue managing your existing territories while humanity continues expanding beyond them. The galaxy is large enough for both approaches. The statement was not a threat. It was simply an acknowledgement of reality. The past 6 months had proven that humanity's expansion could not be stopped by diplomatic or military pressure. The question was whether that expansion would happen in cooperation with the Council, or independent of it. Councillor Prime Kexmuth raised a tentacle. What guarantees do we have that human expansion will not eventually threaten our established territories? The same guarantee you have always had, Ambassador Park replied. Mutual benefit and shared prosperity. But now those benefits include access to unlimited new territories rather than protection of limited existing ones. Elder Morden called for a recess. The Council needed time to process a proposal that challenged every assumption about how galactic civilization worked. During the recess, small groups of aliens gathered throughout the station. Conversations that had been impossible 6 months earlier were now happening naturally. The Saurian trade delegation was discussing joint mining operations with human colonial administrators. Cetacean scientists were comparing notes with human terraforming engineers about ocean world development. Even the notoriously isolationist Crystalline Collective was showing interest in collaborative exploration of neutron star systems that neither species could study alone. When the Council reconvened, the atmosphere had changed completely. The Council has reached a decision, Elder Morden announced. The chamber fell silent. For 17,000 years, the Galactic Council has maintained peace and stability by managing the expansion of member species within sustainable limits. Ambassador Park waited, her expression neutral. Today we acknowledge that this model, while successful for previous species, is not suitable for humanity. Elder Morden's crystalline form blazed with brilliant light. Therefore, the Galactic Council votes to adopt the Expansion Cooperation Protocol proposed by President Kim. The chamber erupted in a sound unlike anything that had ever been heard there before, not the chaos of conflict, but the excitement of new possibilities. The age of managed scarcity is ended, Elder Morden declared. The age of cooperative abundance begins. 1 year later, the first joint human-alien exploration fleet departed from Nexus Prime. The Unity was a ship like no other human propulsion systems powered by crystalline energy matrices, equipped with cetacean deep space sensors and Saurian mineral detection arrays. Captain Minjeng Cho stood on the bridge, watching the stars shift as her ship entered hyperspace. Beside her stood representatives from 6 different species, all working together to explore regions of the galaxy that none of them could have reached alone. Destination confirmed, reported her cetacean navigator. The Andromeda approach vector will take us beyond the galactic rim. Crystalline power systems are operating at optimal efficiency, added the energy systems specialist. We have sufficient power for a 6-month exploration mission. Captain Cho nodded, making notes in her log. First entry, Joint Exploration Mission Alpha 1 proceeding on schedule. Human crew, 47. Alien crew, 38. Mission objective: establish first intergalactic exploration base. She paused, considering the magnitude of what they were attempting. Personal note: 1 year ago, the galactic community was debating whether humanity should be allowed to expand beyond 400 systems. Today, we are leading a joint mission to explore entirely new galaxies. Humanity never learned to accept. limits. Instead, we taught the galaxy that limits were a choice. The Unity disappeared into the depths of space, carrying with it representatives of 13 species united by a new understanding of what galactic civilization could become. Behind them, the galaxy teemed with activity as dozens of species embraced expansion beyond their homeworlds.